There is a community whose entire way of life revolves around a single act, hunting. For the Hadzabe people, this is not a tradition to be preserved, but a way to continue existing. And it is precisely this simplicity that raises a larger question about what is truly necessary for humans not to disappear. To understand why hunting became the soul of Hadzabe culture, it is necessary to begin with the environment in which they live. The Hadzabe primarily inhabit the area around Lake Eyasi in northern Tanzania. This is a semi-arid region where open woodland, savanna, and lakes intersect, creating an unstable environment that forces people to move constantly and depend directly on hunting and gathering for survival. These natural conditions have shaped the rhythm of life and the entire cultural structure of the Hadzabe. According to anthropological research, the Hadzabe are considered one of the very few communities that have continuously maintained a hunter-gatherer lifestyle since pre-agricultural times, with a history stretching back tens of thousands of years. Today, their population is estimated at only around 1,000 to 2,000 people, living in small groups and moving seasonally. This small community size means that all survival activities are highly collective, as the survival of each individual is closely tied to the survival of the group. The Hadzabe do not live in permanent houses, but in temporary shelters built from branches, dry grass, and forest leaves, just enough to provide shade and protection from the rain for a short time. These shelters are usually constructed quickly and can be abandoned at any moment, because for the Hadzabe, stability does not lie in a place of dwelling, but in the ability to move in response to food and water. A camp is only a temporary stop within an ongoing cycle of survival, and leaving it each morning does not feel like leaving home, but simply like continuing a familiar rhythm of life. Within this rhythm, a Hadzabe day does not begin with clocks or fixed schedules. When the sun rises high enough, men prepare their bows and arrows and leave the camp in silence. There are no commands or formal assignments, because the role of hunting is understood as a natural part of daily life. Hunting here is neither ceremonial nor performative, but quiet and regular, much like the way modern people begin a working day.
Obe Hadzabe manako ya isame ya obe kwete jipana manako mangana
Tasi alago ndo ichishako alaguko hata si alaguko
Zara shese ato
Taamana ekoko sets ekweko amo
Their hunting tools are made entirely from natural materials. Bows are crafted from forest wood, bowstrings from animal sinew, and arrowheads are coated with poison extracted from local plants. Every step taken through the forest requires careful observation and controlled movement, as in this environment, survival depends more on experience and silence than on physical strength. While men go out to hunt, women and children are not outside the circle of survival. Women spread into the forest to dig for tubers, gather fruits, collect seeds, and search for honey, stable food sources that play an important role in sustaining the daily diet. Children accompany adults, playing as they observe and absorb skills through direct experience. Learning does not take place within a formal teaching structure, but through watching, trying, and repeating as a natural part of everyday life. In Hadzabe society, there is no clear concept of separating children from risk. Survival itself is the environment in which they grow up. From an early age, children learn to recognize animal tracks, distinguish edible plants, and understand the rhythms of the forest, not because they are deliberately trained, but because these skills are essential conditions for continuing to live within their environment. When an animal is hunted, the catch does not belong to the individual hunter. The meat is brought back to the camp and shared equally among the entire community, then consumed immediately. Hoarding is uncommon, as the environment offers no certainty about tomorrow, and survival depends on relationships of sharing in the present. The following day, they return to hunting in the same way. What is striking is that hunting in Hadzabe society does not create status or power. Skilled hunters do not become leaders, nor do they possess more than others. Hunting is not a profession, but a shared responsibility to sustain collective life. From this rhythm of living, it becomes clear that for the Hadzabe, hunting is not only an act of survival, but the axis around which their entire social and cultural life revolves. When hunting becomes central to existence, other cultural elements of the Hadzabe do not develop independently, but are shaped and function in service of this cycle of survival. This is clearly reflected in the way they communicate, raise children, and organize social roles, especially the role of women within the community. The Hadzabe language is a clear example of this form of adaptation. Their language uses click sounds, short, sharp tongue clicks that are uncommon in most major language families in Africa. Linguists suggest that these sounds are not merely phonetic features, but also carry practical value in forest and savanna environments, where communication needs to be fast, precise, and minimize noise. In this case, language does not exist to express complexity or abstraction, but to support hunting and coordinated survival. The way people speak is shaped directly by the demands of survival. The way Hadzabe children are raised reflects a similar logic. Children are given a very high degree of freedom, without being forced into rigid learning structures or tightly controlled behavior. They learn by observing adults, experimenting within the natural environment, and adjusting through experience. Anthropological studies suggest that this approach helps children develop autonomy, spatial awareness, and quick reflexes, qualities that are essential in a hunter-gatherer society. In this context, freedom is not an abstract value, but a necessary condition for shaping individuals capable of independent survival. The role of women in Hadzabe society further clarifies how culture is organized around hunting. Women not only provide a large share of stable food through gathering, but also play a key role in maintaining group cohesion. They take part in decisions related to camp locations, movement rhythms, and childcare, creating a stable foundation that allows men to leave the camp to hunt. Within this structure, power is not expressed through dominance, but through the degree of contribution to the community's survival. Women do not stand behind hunting, they stand within the circle of survival itself. When observing this entire structure, it becomes clear that hunting is no longer a separate activity. It is the reason language exists in its current form, why children are raised with a high degree of freedom, and why women hold a central role in sustaining the community. If hunting were removed from Hadzabe life, these cultural elements would lose their foundation. This is the story's point of climax. Hunting does not only sustain life, it shapes the very fabric of Hadzabe people and society. From the case of the Hadzabe, it becomes clear that culture does not necessarily have to be tied to expansion, accumulation, or continuous growth. In modern society, culture is often understood as a tool for moving forward, for producing more and achieving more. In contrast, Hadzabe culture is built around a more modest yet fundamental goal, sustaining existence within a harsh environment. This difference raises an important question for modern humans. As culture becomes increasingly complex, do people truly become safer and more secure, or do we simply change the form of survival pressure? The Hadzabe do not accumulate, expand, or seek to control nature, yet they have endured for tens of thousands of years with a simple and resilient social structure. Their culture offers fewer choices, but it also reduces conflicts arising from ownership and competition. This does not mean that a hunter-gatherer lifestyle is an ideal model for modern society. However, it reveals that culture, at its core, is a human response to living conditions. The Hadzabe do not preserve their culture to appear unique, but to continue existing. In today's world, where many cultures are drawn into cycles of speed, development, and consumption, their story reminds us that sometimes the greatest value of culture lies not in how far it goes, but in how it helps people avoid losing themselves.
कोई सी किसी के साथ भी सिस्टम बन जाता है तो अरे अरे का नाम लिख दिया AR अरे ठीक है
The story of the Hadzabe shows that culture does not necessarily need to become more complex in order to endure, but sometimes only needs to be resilient enough for people to continue living. When hunting becomes the core of life, all other elements naturally adjust to support the survival of the community. If you find stories about culture, anthropology, and the ways humans adapt to the world around them worth exploring, consider subscribing to the channel to join us on future journeys. Each episode offers a different perspective on humanity, not to judge or conclude, but to better understand where we come from and how we live today.